Our next alumni award is presented to Sherry Hahn. It's the Arthur Morgan Award. The Arthur Morgan Award is named in honor of Arthur Morgan, about whom you've heard rescued the college when it was on the verge of collapse and who instituted the first of many golden years. It recognizes alumni contributions which exemplify the concept of community, as advocated by Morgan, who as the college's 11th president revitalized the campus and curriculum. Nominees for this award include persons or groups of persons who have contributed to their communities, either locally, nationally, or globally, in a manner which brings members of the community together in order to work towards common goals. Sherry Hahn, class of 1978, epitomizes this definition as a social activist, at least from the days that she would attend Antioch, and certainly as a force for social action in her local community. She mobilized the community of Arlington, Massachusetts, to aid and assist the community of Bosnian refugees. And I've asked Kristen Pett, an outgoing member of our alumni board, to provide a more in-depth contribution and introduction to Sherry Hahn, and then I will award the citation to Sherry, and she'll make her presentation. Kristen?
Sherry Hahn is a native of Denver, Colorado, who first came east to enter Antioch College in the fall of 1973. She said it was the only school that didn't look like every other school. During her time at Antioch, she was arrested at Kent State while protesting a plan to build a new gym on the site of the May 4th shootings. In jail, she met her best friend, Sue Hartman, class of 1979. And the two of them spent a 6-month co-op running the Kent Legal Defense Fund. But as it turns out, this was just warming up for what was to come in her life. In 1993, Sherry's effort in conjunction with her temple collected more than 17 tons of food, clothing, goods, and medical supplies. She then helped to organize a national aid drive for Sarajevo with a Habasa Nurses Council, resulting in 33 tons of medical supplies and clothing valued at $3.5 million. It was the largest non-UN relief shipment sent to what was once Yugoslavia. In 1995, she took enormous personal risks in a heroic effort to reach the cargo during the war in Sarajevo and worked with locals to distribute the supplies. She then initiated and completed a third humanitarian aid and drive. In her own words, if world leaders are ineffective in stopping the genocide in Bosnia, we must rise above the politicians and show that we have learned what never again means. Sherry is currently in her 23rd year of her co-op at the Nurses' Health Study at Harvard University. She and her husband, James Hill, class of 1979, live in Arlington, Massachusetts with their 3 children, Sam, Max, and Jenny. Sherry continues to be involved in numerous community organizations and has served on many boards. On behalf of the Antioch College Alumni Association, with Nancy Crow, it is our absolute pleasure to present Sherry Hahn, class of 1978, with the Arthur Morgan Award for service to community.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, everyone, for coming to Reunion. Thank you, Antioch alumni, for buying the college, most of all. To tell you the truth, it's easier to fly into Sarajevo, at least for me, than to talk about what I did. It's not that I have a problem talking about what I did. I could talk to you for hours. But I am still really angry at the world for not responding to what was going on in Bosnia while we watched. After this morning's presentations, you know, I keep saying to myself, Sherry, stop whining. One of the things that I learned at Antioch is don't whine. And I also have to thank Steve Schwerner, wherever you went, Steve, because some of those 3 or 4 things that we all did that we don't talk about, I know you know at least 2 of my 3 or 4 things. And I'm sure Jamie and I both owe you apologies for having you woken up in the middle of the night. You know, I so appreciate this award. Antioch means so much to me and has taught me life skills that, you know, even if some things aren't replicable today, as an 18-year-old, I went to Washington, D.C. for the first time. I found a cheap motel to spend the night in. I found out where my job was going to be in the morning. This was Sunday afternoon. I found out where my Monday job was. I checked into the motel. I went to work on Monday morning, and somehow I had a place to stay for the next 3 months. It's the sort of experience that teaches you to pay attention to what's going on, to take advantage, make your best use of limited resources, and to remember to think. And without those skills, I know that what I did 15 years ago, I never would have been able to complete. One of the things that Fred asked me to do was to read the bio that I sent to him. And Kristen shared much of it, but there's one part that she didn't share. And so I'm going to read it to you, and then we'll start a slide presentation soon. I do want to say, it doesn't matter whether or not you can see me, but if you can see, I want you to see the slides, because they are what tells the story. So if there's a poll in your way and you can't see the slides, if it's a choice between me and the slides, pick the slides. So feel free to move as you need to. Right, so here is a piece of my biography that Fred wants me to share. Hoping to be the first female Secretary of State, Sherry entered graduate studies at UCLA in Middle Eastern history, where she focused on Jewish history within the Ottoman Empire. Little did I know that most history professors, when they're teaching Middle Eastern history, think that they personally represent the countries that they're teaching about. And also, little did I know that the man who would be my advisor had recently returned from hiding in Turkey for 2 years after his Los Angeles home was firebombed. 18 months into my graduate studies, my advisor was forced back into hiding. The Turkish consul general to Los Angeles had just been assassinated, and the FBI and the CIA warned the professor that he was next on the hit list. This is your typical graduate school experience, right? Following a letter that I wrote to the Daily Bruin defending my professor's right to teach, I was advised that I was no longer welcome to register for classes. Deciding that I would prefer not to be on the next hit list, because, in case you haven't noticed, I have a big mouth, I dropped out of UCLA and I spent the next 4 years, from 82 to 86, which was the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, working at the Los Angeles Free Clinic as the community health worker. My title was not quite officially, but everyone knew me as the Queen of Gonorrhea. And I've worked in healthcare ever since then. So that's why, almost, Jude? Not yet. That's kind of why me, but really why me. I grew up in the post-Holocaust generation as a baby boomer. Every year I went to the Holocaust Memorial celebrations. I attended Orthodox day school. I grew up with the children of survivors. I remember the first tattoo that I ever saw were the numbers on my principal's arm. He was an Auschwitz survivor. Every year we watched Night and Fog. We read Night and Fog. We watched the black and white documentaries of the liberation of the death camps. And people asked us, well, what do you think you would have done? What would I have done? Would I have lived through a death camp? Could I have climbed over a mountain? Would I have been able to quiet a crying baby when I was hiding in the forest without smothering it? Or if I were a Pole or a German or a Czech or a Dane, would I have had the guts to hide a Jew? And these were just questions that you ask children to transmit values, to get them to think, and we never had to think about it. Because after all, there were the great democratic governments of the world, and they were there to protect us. And never again would we be able to say never again, right? Wrong. That is correct. Along came the war in Bosnia, and this time we knew. And not only did we know what was happening while it happened, but we got to watch it on color TV. We got to listen to it on the BBC and NPR. We got to read about concentration camps in Europe in 1992, about yesterday's massacres in today's newspapers. And Bosnia was flooded with journalists who did their damnedest, who risked and lost their lives to make sure that this time we knew. I remember the late Elizabeth Newfer, who then lost her life in Iraq in a car accident early in the war. And I want to mention the late, great Kurt Schork, who was just a pit bull in Bosnia. He was killed in an ambush in Sierra Leone. And I'm going to read just a little bit of an article of his. Sarajevo, May 23rd, 1993. Two lovers lie dead on the banks of Sarajevo's Miljačka River, locked in final embrace. For 4 days, they've sprawled near Verbana Bridge in a wasteland of shell-blasted rubble, downed tree branches, and dangling power lines. So dangerous is the area, no one has dared recover their bodies. Bosko Burkic and Admira Ismic, both 25, were shot dead on Wednesday trying to escape. Sweethearts since high school, he was a Serb and she was a Muslim. Much of the rest of the article talks about her father's effort to recover their bodies so that they could be buried. Squinting through a hole in the sandbagged wall of a bombed-out building, Dino points to where the couple lie smoldering amid the debris of Bosnia's 14-month civil war. Another corpse, that of a man shot 5 months ago, lies nearby. The dead man's body is so wasted his clothes seem hollow. So what was the international response? The United Nations Protection Forces, UNPROFOR, charged with providing humanitarian assistance in Sarajevo, maintains the bodies are a local issue. So this is what we were reading in 1993. And I won't give you all of the statistics right now, except in a population of 4.3 million, there were over 2 million refugees and displaced persons. And this was all before Srebrenica, which was what finally seemed to wake us up. And I wondered, well, who's going to do something? Jim Baker said famously, well, we don't have a dog in that fight. Warren Christopher did nothing. And I wondered, how could neighbors burn one another? How can nobody come and stop what's going on? And we were told that these were age-old ethnic hatreds, which, as we all know, is a way of saying, leave it alone. Don't think about it. They told us it was too complicated to understand. And this is one thing that Antioch taught me, not to swallow an easy answer. Antioch taught me both. Everything that you see is not exactly as you see it, and everything that you see is just exactly what it seems to be. And it leaves me in the constantly thinking about, okay, so which is it?